Hello everyone, this is C1 Games, and this is my second devlog for Treasure Breaker. So it's been quite a while since my first devlog, and I'm happy to say that even though the past few weeks have been a bit slow, I've managed to get some nice updates since my first devlog. So without further ado, let's get started. So first I'm going to discuss the changes I've implemented, and then afterwards I'm going to discuss my future plans for improving gameplay. So as you can tell here, I now have a main menu screen, and that's one of the biggest changes that I've implemented since my first devlog. I've basically set up the structure for the UI, the basic skeleton of the UI, just to have something in place to make it easier to add levels and whatnot, and to have some basic navigation for a more complete app. So this is the main menu screen. Doesn't look too pretty, but the buttons work. So here I don't have enough levels to implement these buttons yet. Back works. I do have three distinct levels here. These aren't just placeholders. So I'm gonna get into that in a bit. But first, to show the updated level layout. So as you can see here, it's a bit different than before. Much neater and nicer, and I have a pause button now. So I can pause and resume. I could retry at any time in the level, and I can navigate back to the beginning. Another major change here is that I added a sample graphical display for the time remaining. So I feel that it's definitely much more easier to notice. Again, the visuals will be updated when I start implementing the graphics and whatnot. The sliders are a bit smaller. I've found that when testing on my phone that the sliders before are a bit too wide, so this definitely makes it easier to control these paddles. And everything else has been minimized, so instead of using text for the UI, you now just have simpler, more intuitive displays. For this would be the ball resets, the amount you have remaining versus the total that you start with, which is important because depending on the level, you have different amounts of, like a different number for the amount of ball resets that you have, and this is the time remaining. Other than that, the gameplay itself hasn't really changed, and I'll get into that in more depth later on. So as you can see here, it still plays the same as before. So here I'm just gonna try to complete this level to just show the last part of the updated UI, which would be the game end screen. So before it was just a simple do you want to retry, yes or no. Now I have implemented the same navigation and options as in the pause menu. So you could retry, you could go to other menus, and you can go to the next level like this. So currently as well, proceeding to the next level doesn't depend on completing of the previous levels. There are just 3 distinct levels to try it out. So here this is one of my experimentations for designing a level. So this one is very short, and as you can probably guess, a treasure break would be either in one of these two. So and you only have one ball reset, so it's really just one or the other. So in this case, it was this one. And lastly, this monstrosity is the 3rd level. So if we go ahead and just try exploring around a bit. And yeah, it happens to be in the middle. So let's just... And that's about it for the major changes. And I'm also happy to say that I've published my very first app to the Play Store, although it's this one and it's in an alpha release. But it gave me a lot of good experience with publishing to the Google Play Store and all the things that you have to do before. It was a lot more tedious than I initially imagined. Although unfortunately I couldn't really get that to work, as it's currently in closed testing and I'm having a bit of trouble with configuring a testing list, especially with my own email. So I decided to leave that for later. So other than that, I just want to discuss my plans for improving the gameplay. As in the past few weeks, I have managed to test it quite a lot myself, but also get some other people to test it. And I've noticed some major flaws with my game that I plan to improve once I finish improving the code, which is what I'm currently doing right now. So the first major flaw is that the ball is actually very hard, like much harder than it should be to control, and that's the point of the game. Actually, was to make the ball easy to control, as I wanted the game to focus more on trying to find a treasure brick than just aimlessly destroying every brick on screen, because otherwise it would just be regular brick breaker. Um, but when I played it myself and had other people played it, I realized that it's actually quite a challenge just to control the ball or keep it within these bounds in the first place. Um, and and at that point you won't really even be focusing on looking for the treasure brick. So I definitely want to improve that. It'll require a bit of redesigning the fundamental like design of the game, but it'll definitely be worth it. And I think the reason why it's hard to control is that the paddles are closer to the bricks, and that limits their movement range quite significantly. The reason why I did that in the first place was because I thought that keeping it close would allow the ball to hit the bricks much faster, and that letting it go in these regions will make it take longer to come back. Although that is true, what I didn't realize is that putting the paddles close to the brick like this makes it very difficult to control, as you have a very limited range of movement, and when the ball goes around here, for example, in the corners, it's hard to there's not much the player can do to save it, and they're forced to kind of just wait for it. So that's the first major flaw. The second one is that the game itself is not very intuitive. I found that when I showed people my game, when bump into someone and I tell them I'm working on a game and I let them try it out, I find that I'm giving quite a long explanation as to the rules of the game, the objective, the ball resets, the timer, the break animations, the sliders, and all of that stuff. So I plan to make the game more intuitive. Well, although it is due to a lack of tutorials, which I do plan to implement when the game is more complete. At the same time, I feel like the base game should be a bit more intuitive, especially the brick animations, as you have a tiny, seemingly insignificant animation that plays, but it's very significant to the game. So one thing that I plan to improve is to definitely make the animations more significant, like that it's very obvious. Even someone next to the person playing the game could notice that the person, for example, had hit a gold brick, for example. So I want to basically make the game more intuitive, such that even without an explanation of the rules, the person can still kind of figure out what the objective is. So that's all that I have for today, for this devlog, and for my next one, I'm planning to dive into more of the technical aspects, as I'm doing a lot of changes in the code, and I've learned quite a lot in terms of developing on Unity and applying what I learned throughout university. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.